YouTube does it. It's fucking wiki. Oh, there's a Twitter thread from the FF16 devs. Interesting. I am looking forward very much to FF16. What's this say? Bring peanut butter. Now that more FF16 staff have been revealed, I'll show you why this game has the potential to be the most unique single-player FF in 15 years. Some of the best minds at Square have been given a shot at this game to carve a new path. Okay. First of all, Final Fantasy 16 comes from a different lineage of Final Fantasy than you are used to. These are the people that worked on games like Final Fantasy Tactics, Vagrant Story, 12, and the MMOs like the hugely acclaimed FF14. But their last single-player FF was FF12. The lineage of Final Fantasy dev teams. This represents where dev teams across Square made across the years, showcasing two different lineages of the series leading up to FF7 Remake and FF16 releasing in the same period. So the FF6 devs went off, split into 7 and Tactics. Chrono Cross. Oh, that was the sequel to Chrono Trigger, which apparently was awful. Vagrant Story. I don't know what Vagrant Story is. FF9, which we're playing now. So some went off to Tactics and then came back for 12. All right, 7. So that makes sense to me mentally, is that they went on to FF9, which we're playing now. FF14 2.0. So the Chrono Cross team went on to 11, went on to 14, and got replaced by the 12-9 team. Okay. Oh, people. Various people. This could be like one guy, right? I wonder how stretched this is, but you get the idea. And then the FF7 team, some went on to 9, or probably crossed over into 8. And then went on to Kingdom Hearts. Oh, interesting. 10, 10, 2, 13. What is Type O? What's Type O? Is that a totally different game? A PSP game. Final Fantasy Type O. Never heard of this. This sounds like a Resident Evil game. Ah, Jesus. Unreadable. Moving on. So in 16 years, we haven't had a single player Final Fantasy from them as the Final Fantasy 13 trilogy. FF15 and even FF7 Remake comes under the leadership and or influence of Kitase Studio. Known figures are Nomura, Najima, Toriyama, Naora, etc. They are all the classical side of FF, huge veterans. The other side of FF, though, is a more ambitious and boundary-pushing side. They're the people that created the MMOs, but also came up with more Western-orientated fantasy games, Tactics, Vagrant Story, 11, 12, and 14. Known figures are some idiot called Yoshi P. I'm joking! Minigawa. The opposite of Gigakawa. It's Minigawa and Gigakawa. Mihiro, Matsuno, etc. A big name on this side of FF is Yasumai Matsuno. He was responsible of Tactics, Vagrant Story, and 12. He brought an influential touch to the series with a darker brand of fantasy focused on politics, class conflict, and betrayal. He's not working on 16, but it is relevant. Okay. What's the link to this thread? Let me paste it here. I've never heard of Vagrant Story either. So, who exactly are the people involved with 16? First of all, the genius himself, Yoshi P. Yoshi P carved a path for himself with 14. Matsuno's games were hugely influential on him, as he considers him a god designer and the reason he joined Square. Ah, young man. Young man! Now I am old man. Yoshida managed to ascertain himself as a genius director and producer through the rebirth of 14, and the special touch he carried to the MMOs is informed by his love of Matsuno games. The focus on world building, politics, oppression, and conflict comes from that side of FF. In fact, Koji, praise be, said the reason 14 borrows so much influence and lore from 12 is because the 14 team has a lot of people that worked on 12, which is another Matsuno-led game. Yoshi P is also a fan. You could also see names like Mihiro and Minigawa there next. Oh man, this is not as cool an answer as you're expecting. Final Fantasy is about borrowing, taking things other FFs did and adjusting it and making it your own. The fact that the 14 team has a lot of people that worked on 12. Our main scenario writer, Mihiro-san, also worked on 12. Minigawa-san, the guy that did all of the UI, also 12. He's working with us. And also Yoshida-san himself being a fan of FF12. This is one of the games they wanted to borrow heavily from because they thought it was really cool. and they really like the imagery and lore it had. So they want to borrow from it. Of course, they know. They know. Okay. Next, Kazuyo Mihiro is the creative director and writer of FF16. This man has worked on the games Yoshi P loves, Tactics, Vagrant, Story. They know. They know, everybody. He's also a wizard. Shit! Is that for real? He's not only an engineer and game designer, he was part of the task force that saved FF14. He's a wizard? They know. They know. As if that wasn't enough, Mihiro was also a writer on 14, as he wrote A Realm Reborn and then soared by writing Heavensward, a hugely successful and critically acclaimed expansion. Funny. Well said. In fact, Heavensward is the expansion that encapsulates the kind of style the team have. Yeah, Heavensward's pretty good. After that, Hiroshi Minagawa is the art director of 16. This is the best news I could hear, as he is hugely talented. He was the art director of Tactics and Vagrant Story. He did the visual design of 12. We need to play Tactics and Vagrant Story, don't we, before 16. He did the visual design of 12 and also art director on Stormblood and Shadowbringers. Hiroshi Minagawa was also part of the task force that saved 14. This was the first real-time render of 14 2.0.
Just
envisioning how the game should
Don't have
look.
Much time right now. Greatly enjoyed the VOD of the new PC build.
Me too. Works a treat, baby. Works a treat. Thanks, man. Have a great day, dude. It ended up being really similar. He also is so talented and deeply underrated. That is a busy UI. But close. Close. Hiroshi Takai is the main director of 16. Not only was he also part of the task force for 14, he goes as far back as 5. His career is different, as he was very involved on Saga games under Kawazu, and ended up directing The Last Remnant. Not only that, he was also the battle director for the utterly brilliant battle system of Romancing Saga Minstrel Song. Not played that. That just had a remaster announced. He has a huge flair for making deep combat systems that are involving and exhilarating. He owns. He knows. He knows. This article goes in depth on Hiroshi Takai's career and why he's a force to be reckoned with. Cool. He also, those people I cited were all involved in 14 Task Force. But did you know that before 14, they were involved in a cancelled IP that was considered as Bloodborne before Bloodborne? I mean, I don't know. I don't know about that. They are now all in charge of 16. This is their style, their shared ambition. What genre was this game to be? It was similar to Bloodborne. Yeah, that's probably the closest example, says Yoshida. So it was an action game? Yes, it wasn't an RPG, but a fairly hardcore action game. Minagawa said, if we kept going and Bloodborne was released first, we'd probably be freaking out right now. Takai said, it had the same weapons and guns, and it was in the Gothic style. Yoshi says, we also had a few sci-fi elements in there. When I first saw Bloodborne, I thought, where have I seen this before? The guy says, thinking about it now, I don't think our personal interests were very Final Fantasy. Interesting. Next, Ryota Suzuki. Oh, this guy's cool. Shit, man. Look at that jacket. Porn star. A new recruit at Square that is in charge of the combat of 16. He worked at Capcom previously, being involved in games like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Project Justice, Onimusha, Devil May Cry 4 and 5, Dragon's Dogma. Action combat is his expertise. Yeah, this guy is fucking suave. Not a hair on that body, you can tell. Not a one. Fucking smooth and slippery. As far as I know, he was the person in charge of Nero's gameplay in Devil May Cry 4, possibly even DMC5. So if you want to have an idea of how 16 will play out, it's probably going to be a mix between Dragon's Dogma and Nero's combat style and flashiness. Interesting. In fact, you can already see some DMC-isms in this clip too. The way he does an air grab and switches styles to pull off a finisher. 16 will probably have the ease of play of a Dragon's Dogma game, but a level of depth that skews closer to Devil May Cry. Alright, I'm down. I'm down. Next, Kazuya Takahashi. is the character designer of 16. He was involved with the FF series since 9, but started to branch into character designs with 14 leading into gorgeous illustrations. He's an incredible artist and deserves to get the spotlight in 16. Very nice. Okay. Masayoshi Soken, never heard of him, proved himself as a huge player in the music space of Square, being heavily involved in 14 and constantly outdoing himself every expansion. His music is beloved around the world, and his style of male choir is carried in 16. Oh, that's dope. That's dope. Who? And of course, Koji on the localization of 16. He made a name for himself on 11 and 14, delivering the depth the game had incredibly well in English. Chadamus Prime. Black shirt with black tie, slate black on black. I see it. All these people I introduced are FF16's lead staff, an array of hugely talented artists that we haven't seen in the single-player side of FF for more than 15 years. After delivering some of the best experiences through 14 for a decade, this is their big break. These are people that are not shackled by tradition or rules. They have a style they're pursuing. Who is this? Who's Peanut Butter? Follows me. Hi. Have a follow. Dream Boom. It's a frog. It's a frog. And this is, I actually really have, the recent games have made me appreciate the turn-based ATB so much. Like, having that little bit of time to make choices and have those choices have really serious consequences that you kind of have to watch play out, they're really kind of nice. It's a great system that really, really goes the test of time. It super does. Like 4 and 6 and Chrono Trigger are such great examples of how good it is. Just like FF Tactics and 14 shook up the series, FF16 carries that spirit and ambition and lineage. And this is what I want most out of the series. FF16 has the potential to carve a new path. So I think that is Bring Peanut Butter just a fan who's done all the research on this? It would appear that way. 16 is able to plant its own flag in the series so that FF can follow from there. Seems so, yeah. It's cool to get a nice background on it and who's working forward. This means that 16 will be fundamentally new experience in the single-player space of FF for a lot of people. Not only that, it will be the first single-player FF that hasn't been announced or teased back in 2006. That's 16 years ago. Exciting future. That's fantastic. That was a good little history lesson. Let's give it the old... let's do our best for the heart and the quote retweet. There we go. Tweet. There you go. There you go. I'm being a helpful human being. How good's that? Spread the good word. Who is? It's really long. I'll link this article here. When does it come back to 7? It's coming. After, though, hippos.